Call roll, please.
Certainly. Gary Cunningham.
Here.
Nathan Long.
Here.
Doug Bryson.
Here.
Deanna Hinton. Here. Steve Griffiths.
Here.
Riley Hoagland.
Here.
And Bruce Robinson.
Here. Are there any changes or revisions?
No, there aren't.
And the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for April 21st, 2015.
I'll second the motion.
Approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comments on non-agenda items or matters not involving a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on matters not involving a public hearing? None? We don't have any final words or resolutions or written communications. So we're into public hearings, deliberations.
Mr. Chair, before we start, our videographer advises me that your sound level's a little too high on your lapel mic, so he thought maybe you could just move it down a little bit.
Being too loud.
Maybe.
How's that? Okay. That's an okay. Okay, thank you. All right. So I read this, isn't it, Kate? It's now 6:02 p.m. Public hearing for file CPA and ZC 2015-02 is open. This public hearing concerns a city-initiated proposal to rezone portions of the northeast and southeast quadrants of Lincoln City to the recently enacted vacation rental VR zone. The proposal is to amend the comprehensive plan map and zoning map to rezone 277 tax lots totaling approximately 67.8 acres, which are now zoned single-family residential, to a newly created comprehensive plan and zoning map designation of Vacation Rental District, or VR. This proposal is the last of several city-initiated rezoning proposals by quadrant to apply the newly created VR zone. The Planning Commission's role in this legislative process is to consider any written or oral comments or testimony as well as information from staff, and to make a recommendation to the City Council, who will hold an additional public hearing. The City Council may adopt the Planning Commission recommendation, may adopt a different recommendation, or may take other action, including declining to make a decision. The Commission must take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Some may believe that this proceeding or parts of it are quasi-judicial. If you believe these proceedings are quasi-judicial in character, the following procedural safeguards will be observed. Does any member of the Commission wish to declare an ex parte conflict of interest or bias in this matter? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of the Commissioner to participate in this matter? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to consider this matter? The following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to the City Code and ORS 197.763.5. Staff will now read a list of the applicable substantive criteria for this decision.
The amendments must be found to be in conformance with the statewide planning goals the comprehensive plan and the applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance, including specifically the locational criteria for the VR zone. That's it.
All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria previously listed, or such other criteria, use regulations which the person applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue by statements or evidence to afford the decision parties
I can read the required statements if you'd like. Following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to City Code and ORS 197763 sub 5. Staff will now read a list of the applicable substantive criteria.
Which are the amendment must be found to be in conformance with the statewide planning goals, the comprehensive plan, and the applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance, including the locational criteria for the VR zone.
All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable substantive criteria previously listed or such other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes appeal to LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the decision maker to respond to the issue precludes any action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the end of this hearing, any person who participated may request a continuance to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence, or request that the record be left open to submit additional written testimony, argument, or evidence. Would you like me to continue?
Please.
Before the staff presents a report, I would like to summarize the adopted public hearing procedures. A brochure outlining procedures is at the entrance to the council chambers. Generally, the order of proceedings will be as follows: preliminary matters and required statements, staff report, questions of staff, public testimony, requests for continuances or to leave the record open, close of the hearing, close of the record, request to submit written argument, deliberations, and recommendation. The city has established some time limits. Following the staff report, a person may speak for up to 3 minutes. If the Planning Commission has questions, your time responding to any questions will not be counted in your time limit. If you wish to speak, please write your name and mailing address clearly on the sign-up sheet at the entrance. Please speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name. If you also have written testimony to submit to the record, please provide a copy to the recorder. That's the end of the preliminary statements, and
Thank you, sir. Please present the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission members. This is the third of 3 hearings you're holding on where to recommend putting the VR zone within the R1 zone of the city. In this case, we're proposing an area that would affect 277 lots, which comprise 67.8 acres of land within the city. Again, it applies only to the R1 zone, existing R1 zone. There is no multifamily zoning, rezoning proposed here, and none of the RR zone, which is recreation residential, is proposed for rezoning either. Although you could, it's okay. You could make that change if you want to recommend that change. Now I'm hearing what the time delay is on that. So.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Just as by way of sort of background information, I'm going to run through a series of maps, zoning maps with the different colors are different zones. The yellow areas and the orange areas on these maps are the R1 zone. And again, we're talking about just the southeast and northeast quadrants of the city. So that is other than in Rhodes End, but it's east of Logan Road, which runs down here as I'm showing. All of this area in yellow on this map is zoned R175, 7,500 square foot minimum lot size. Most of this is the Villages at Cascade Head property. But over here on the right area, for example, is Lincoln Palisades, Sunridge by the Lake, and other developments. The golf course is over here to the right, just north of Highway 101, which is running down through here. Then moving to the south, again, here's Highway 101 coming through here, so we're looking only at areas east or to the right of the highway. The yellow areas are R175. This is West Devils Lake Road coming down through here. This is 22nd coming in across near the bottom. So the yellow areas up here is R175, R175 here. These 4 orange-colored lots are R15, 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. And then more R175 and some more R15 as we get further south. Devils Lake, West Devils Lake Road comes down here, becomes 14th, and you see we've got there's Regatta Park, some R175, R15, it's the Indian Shores area in here, and then you get into Ocean Lake. This is the lake. South of the lake, there's this area of RR zone, recreation residential zone.
In the middle.
There's 2 areas of recreation residential in the city. There's that one, and then there's this small area up here, 28th and 29th on the east side. So, then again on the highway coming down through here, there's this area of R175. The Lincoln City Outlets is in this area, this red area of its general commercial zone. The new Bi-Mart store is over here just by way of illustration. This is East Devils Lake Road, running east and west there. Then as we get further south, again, here's Highway 101 coming down, and there's this area, large area of R175 property. There's Taft Village cores down here at the south end. So that's just showing that's the areas we're talking about. You know, the consensus committee back in 2012, as you may recall, they did a report and came up with 20 recommendations, some of which related to what they're calling created the yes-no zones. The yes zones being areas where in the R1 zone, in this particular, well, actually they did it for all zones in the city, but I'm focusing on R1. Yes would be areas where vacation rental dwellings would be allowed without restrictions on the number of nights, and the no zones would be areas where they would be prohibited completely. What they recommended was going north to south again. The yellow, all yellow and green in here is R1 zoning. The green would be yes, and the remainder of the R1 zoning, which is in yellow, would be no. So this large green area, here's the highway coming in here. So to the north of the highway, this is the golf course, and they recommended the entire golf course area be a yes zone, as well as down here near the bottom, this area along the near the lake at the end of Northeast 36th was also recommended for yes. Then West Devils Lake Road comes down, sort of winds through as I'm showing here. What they recommended was everything east of West Devils Lake Road, zoned R1, would be yes, with the exception of Indian Shores and the property to the west of Indian Shores. And then south of the lake, they did not recommend that any property be put in the VRs or in the yes zone. So staff's recommended is what you're dealing with tonight. This is, again, north to south. The blue areas are the areas that staff is suggesting you recommend to the or to the City Council go into the VR zone. And again, the VR zone would be, it's a new zone where all the uses are identical to what's allowed in the R1 zone with one exception, and that is that vacation rental dwellings would be allowed without any restriction on the number of nights for which they could be rented. In the R1 zone, vacation rental dwellings are restricted to being accessory uses, which is incidental and subordinate to the primary use as a vacation home. So rather than the entire golf course, what staff suggested is the residential lots within the golf course be considered for rezoning to the VR zone. The principal reasons for that is because it's essentially in the middle of a recreational resource that the city has, I know you have comments, written comments at your seat tonight. With a number of the comments that are in opposition to including this area. Then also, again, the consensus committee included the entire golf course area. We're just suggesting the residential area, or the residential parts of the golf course, and it also had included this area at the end of 36th. One of the criteria in the VR zone is that lots for the property to be included in the VR zone has to be served by city sewer. And the cross-hatched red areas are not served by city sewer. Those are developed lots that do not have city sewer. So that area at the end of 36 could not be in the VR zone. Then there's really only 3 areas that we're proposing for or suggesting for the VR zone. This is the second one in the Regatta Park area. The consensus committee suggested essentially the same areas that is proposed here to the west of the park, and they also suggested going further up along the lake. As I said, all of the R1 area adjacent to the lake and east of West Ovals Lake Road. But for a couple of reasons, I've excluded some areas. One was on the northeast 30th, northeast 32nd, that loop area. When the council was first considering the yes/no zones, there was a petition from the residents. I think there's 43 lots there, 19 property owners signed the petition against being put in a yes zone. So I've excluded it on the assumption that a substantial, perhaps a majority, because I know that some people didn't get a chance to sign the petition, but a substantial number of the people there were opposed to it, and so for that reason it's excluded from the suggested map. Also, again, this area to the northeast does not have city sewer, so it's excluded, and the other areas do not have sewer as well. So there's just this area in the area of Regatta Park. Then to the south, suggesting the Bayview development and some adjacent properties on the south side of 48th and down to the R1 properties on the outskirts of the Taft Village core zone on the east side of the highway. This is adjacent to the new Taft Park. The little rectangle that somehow got shifted, but the Taft Park is here. This is the property the city just bought, and is pursuing grant funding to develop. Again, the consensus committee did not recommend any of these properties be included in the VR or in the yes zone. And I think that's all I have on at this point. If you have questions?
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
Could you, starting at the top, could you know how many VRDs there are in each clump of?
That's very easy. There's one in the area at Regatta Park, and there's one in Bayview. And that's it. In the past, there have been others, but properties have changed hands, or for whatever reason, the property owners have not chosen to renew their.
No, it's not a high
So right now, there's two in the R1 zone. There are others in the RM zone, but just the
Not
two
what
in the
we're
R1
looking at.
zone.
Richard, we come up with RD program that we already had in place. Petitions from the neighborhood, or how did we get here?
The council asked staff to make recommendations on the areas that should be applied, that could be suitable for the VR zone, principally as a means of, rather than having people come in sort of piecemeal and having a multiplicity of applications and the very substantial cost that comes with that for applying. It's this $2,500 application fee. They had asked staff to come up with recommendations. We undertook to do it sort of quadrant by quadrant rather than have it all at once, but there was so little on the east side, we decided just as easy to just do the northeast and southeast together. Because as I said, we did the northwest quadrant, and the Planning Commission suggested some changes. The City Council has acted and made further changes. On the southwest quadrant, Planning Commission recommended some changes to what staff had suggested, and the City Council is still considering that. They will make their decision in June.
So the city council came back and asked the planning commission up with some additional that could be.
No.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Asked the planning department to make a recommendation or to come up with areas that seem to meet the locational criteria, and then present it to the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to the City Council.
So did they, and I'm sure the council was well aware, the comprehensive plan that was done by the judge back, I think you said 2012, that consensus group decided that all the VRD should be on the west side of 101. I don't think there was any exceptions on that.
Actually, there was a lot. As I showed you, all the area in green on here, that's the consensus committee's recommendation just for the R1 zone on the east of 101 in the northeast quadrant and most of the northeast quadrant. But what is not shown there is the RM zone, which they also recommended including. Because a lot of these areas, like this point here, is zoned RM, multifamily residential. There's other areas of multifamily residential. One of the big differences, of course, is that what the consensus committee recommended was absolute yes and absolute no. What the VR zone is absolute yes, but the R1 zone still is allowed without a restricted number of nights per year.
But if I remember correctly, too, at the time we were trying to keep things on the west side, and maybe it's not that good, we might have had some sections on the west side of 101. Specifically the area down by 48 up in the hill, that area. I know
Right, that was,
I did not
right,
that one.
right. On this one, as I showed you, the yellow is the R1 zone, and if there was green on that east of the highway, that would have been areas that the consensus committee recommended be included, but there are no green areas on there because they did not recommend any areas east of the highway in the southwest quadrant, or southeast quadrant of the city be included in the yes zone.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember back on, what the discussion was at that time about keeping things to the west side, or to the west side of 101. We were trying to think about the livability of the people that live here and the opportunities they would have to buy residential properties without having the heavy influence of this property could be a VRD, it could be overtaken by VRDs, trying to keep residential houses as residential houses, to give more access to the people to buy property that for recreational, for residential use.
Mm-hmm.
By opening up more houses for VRDs, I think we're putting a question on why didn't we do it before? And we didn't do it before because we wanted to leave open the availability to have more living space for residential residents. At least that's what my recollection is.
Why don't you bring that back up again during deliberation? I think those are valid points.
Okay.
Dave, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that for the northwest quadrant and the southwest quadrant, we are considering areas, R1 areas, that were already heavily impacted by VRDs, correct? And tonight, we're looking at areas that are not heavily impacted by VRDs, and the city is asking us to recommend to the council that we recommend them as new VRZ zones. Is that correct? So there's a difference here.
On the west side, certainly that's where the vast majority of VRDs are. There aren't that many on the east side. So yeah, I guess you could say that's a difference. That's one of the reasons why the areas proposed that are suggested here tonight are much more limited than even what the consensus committee had suggested, with this exception in the Bayview area and Taft area.
I had another question. How is the $2,500 figure calculated? How?
It's the fee for a comprehensive plan amendment and zoning map amendment and comprehensive plan map amendment. Ordinarily, those take a very substantial amount of time. We have to determine that there's compliance with or conformity with all the statewide planning goals and the comprehensive plan. And then that takes a lot of time to put that together, pull the information together, and so on. When there's a single lot, that's not very. When there's a bunch of single lots, so I know there's people coming in independently. That's not very conducive to a very efficient process, and like I say, it really would really burden the individuals that are affected. That's why we've suggested, or why the city council suggested this way as a means of not having that burden imposed on individual property owners in areas that, as a general rule, would seem to comply with the locational criteria.
And one more question. If a PUD wanted to apply to be in a VR zone, would they be charged just $2,500, or would it be multiplied by the number of homes in their PUD?
No, they would be charged the $2,500 to be rezoned, same as any rezoning.
Same as any individual
one thing, they would
homeowner.
probably do it. No, we'd never mind. Yes, they would be charged the $2,500.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I was wondering if we can remind people for non-conforming, was it existing VRDs is up to 180 days, is it?
Ones that were in existence as of what's the date, Richard? October something of last year?
Yes, I think it's October 27th date, but council has asked that we modify that date to the end of the year.
Yeah. But they would be, they are still restricted to the incidental and subordinate level of usage, again, the accessory use. That exact number, what number that is, has not been determined yet. But they would have the option, those ones that are pre-existing that date, could take what we're calling the settlement option, is that we would not do enforcement for those that are not complying with the accessory use limitation if they agreed to limit it to 180 days.
So one that wants to be a VRD can just bypass everything and stick to 30 days, just take a 30-day option? If there's a new VRD coming in that doesn't...
The new one has a couple of options. And people have said there's a 30-day limitation, and there is not a 30-day limitation. The 30 days is an option that people can select if they only want 30 days or less, or 30 nights or less, I should say. They can take that, and there's an expedited process they go through, and they go straight to the licensing. Don't have to go through the land use process. If they want more than that 30 nights, then they go through the normal land use process. They apply, they say, I want X number of nights, and then it's up to the planning department to say that is or isn't an accessory use level. I've had several come in, one for 60 nights, which was approved for 60 nights, one they asked for 70 to 80 nights, and that was approved for 80 nights. And there were, I think, 4 that wanted 110 to 150 nights, as I recall. And those were not approved for that level, but they all were approved with a condition for 90 nights. And that would apply to any VRD going forward. They can go through that process. So there's no 30-night limitations, a 30-night option, but then they still have to do the accessory use level of use.
All right, thank you.
Further questions?
I do.
Shoot.
If they apply for 150 days and they get declined, who decides the number of days that they do get approved for? Do they then ask again?
Say that again.
If they are requesting...
Requesting 150, we'll say.
Right.
I make the decision that yes or no on 150.
Okay.
And
if it's a
they
no...
don't like what I say, they can appeal that to the this is to you, to the Planning Commission.
Okay. Is there a fee for each time they apply?
There's a fee for the initial application, and then there's a fee for the appeal. The appeal is $150.
And what is the current fee to apply to be a VRD in an R1 zone?
Is it $350? Yeah, $350.
Any further questions? I have a couple of questions. Basically, I'd like to go back over the 3 zones you're talking about and ask again the 3 questions. Basically, what's there? What did the consensus committee say, and why?
Okay. Let's go up. So in the area of the golf course, obviously the golf course is there. There's some topography. It's rolling territory. There are a number of houses in there. I'm not sure. Some of these lots that are shown on here, they're obviously very small lots. Some of these that are shown on here as individual lots actually are part of the golf course. There are...
The tribe can go ahead and build houses on them?
It's up to them.
Okay.
If this property that's in trust for the tribe, then we don't have any jurisdiction on that. I'm not like the golf course itself. We don't have jurisdiction over because that's in trust. I'm not sure how many of these lots are in trust.
If the tribe wanted to build duplexes and rent them out, that's a sovereign nation.
If it's property that they have that's in trust, then they certainly could do that. Otherwise, there is property that the tribe owns that is not in trust, and that, until it goes into trust, that is subject to our land use controls. There is the road going into it, this is where the clubhouse is, and the Aces restaurant. The road going in there is narrow. It's not suited to a lot of traffic. That's the principal drawback. I mean, as I'm sure as you saw in the comments you've gotten, that's one of the big concerns about that area.
And you said earlier, I believe, there are no VRDs in there at
Right.
this moment. That you know of. Go ahead.
And there are other residential properties on the golf course on the side, is it not?
Well, there's property that, let me just look at the green on this map. The green is the golf course itself. Some of this property in here actually has not been developed for golf course, but was the property owner deeded it to the tribe for expansion of the golf course, and I'm assuming that's what the tribe intends to do. The property to the west is the villages at Cascade Head. With this small area here is the only part that's been developed for residential property. That's Maplewood. This is the Fernwood area, which is not developed yet. This property is not owned by the city. That is actually owned by somebody in Florida. This property up here is part of the villages at Cascade Head, also not owned by the city. That's owned by another property owner. But there's no developed housing on the west, immediately adjacent to the golf course on the west side. Except, well, I should say, except down here at the extreme sort of southwest part, there is some residential development down there. Just to the east of West Devils Lake Boulevard, up behind the DMV.
Now on to Regatta Park. Can you show me where Lake Drive and Regatta Drive are in that picture?
Well, let's see. Well, this is Regatta Park itself. Lake Drive comes up this way. There's a lot of little segments of Lake Drive. I believe this is also Lake Drive down here, and so, but when you go into the park, you go down here. There's the parking area down here, and the dock down here, and you go back up. And this is open space right here.
What do we have? How many VRDs are in there now?
One.
Just one. And this was consensus committee thought this should be.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, the consensus committee was pretty generous with the R1 on the east side of the road. This is the Regatta Park, and they thought Lake Drive should be in as well. So.
Richard, so the consensus group said yes for their map to include that area. At that time, did they understand yes to mean, like we're looking at today, 365 nights?
Yes.
They did? Okay.
And then the Taft area.
And the third area is the Taft area. This area to the north of Southeast 48th is the Bayview development. There are a few to several houses built in there right now. It's largely undeveloped. The street system is in, but actually this area here is not part of Bayview development. There are houses in here.
And there's no VRDs up there now, right?
There is one in Bayview right now,
In Bayview, the new development?
yes. Then down here on the other side of 48th and down near 51st, most of these lots are developed with houses. These large lots are not developed. This is mostly wetland. And these lots down here are mostly developed as well with small houses. And that's was included because it's close to the amenities of Taft, principally. The Bayview has, as you can tell by the name, has some very good views of the bay.
Thank you. Were there any other questions of Richard? All right. Thank you, sir. Now's the time for public testimony. I'll call names from the sign-up sheet first, and then anybody who hasn't signed up will get a chance to speak. When your name is called, please come up. Stay close to the microphone and give us your name. You don't have to give us your address. Deborah Bingham, please.
Equipment over here.
Can we pull that closer for her?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Glad you're here. I'm Debbie Bingham, and I live at 1175 Northeast Lake Drive by Regatta Park. And I've already given a copy, and I've also signed a petition for opposing it. Home is where the heart is. 20 years ago, after my husband's 24-year Navy career, we moved to Lincoln City for our forever home. Our realtor guided us to family neighborhoods near the hospital as requested and let us know vacation areas to avoid. We have lived from Hawaii to Scotland in magnificent places, and local folk were protected by zoning. Tourists are expected and welcomed, but we rely on our city to protect us from business enterprises encroaching on our home. The old-timers and realtors called this area Shangri-La because of its beauty and peace. It is an old, established neighborhood on a dead-end street. It is not a buffer zone. Just because we live in a beautiful place should not be a reason to change it to a business area with so few regulations. Regatta Park is the major park used for family activities in Lincoln City. We welcome visitors, but it is not supposed to be primarily a tourist destination and attraction. Increased foot and car traffic on our street and in the park would be unsafe. We already deal with visitors cramming into homes with many cars and people. Some folks vacationing have been distant and difficult, and clearly they have no investment in our neighborhood. Speeding is an issue. We have placed a children at play sign out on which is ignored, and the kids are glared at. Doing regular house and yard work brings swearing and comments like, "We are on vacation." Why would it be right for my city to allow even fewer rules? Safety, crime, and peace of mind is a big issue. This unlimited mixed-use commercial zone is not right for this neighborhood or Regatta Park. Visitors can enjoy the lake, beaches, river, and other attractions without doing away with an established neighborhood just because it is a prime, lovely, peaceful Shangri-La. We should not, as a city, be telling our residents that we don't deserve to live here. Our city government should abide by our zoning protections. Please contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Go ahead. Could you give me your address again?
1175 Northeast Lake Drive.
Helen Voigt.
Does it matter which one?
No.
Is it possible to have the map be brought up of the area that I am talking about?
Certainly.
The Regatta Park, Devil's Lake, Lake Road. My name is Alan Voigt, and I live on Lake Road, just west of the Regatta Park. And I want to thank you, first of all, for all your questions, because it kind of cleared up my mind about some things. And one was by you, Doug, and that is, how did these properties get into being proposed to be part of the VR zone? And I want to make it clear that our neighborhood did not request, nor is there a vacation.
Excuse me, if I could interrupt, it's really important that you speak right into the microphone.
Oh, okay. And I just want to make it clear that no one in our neighborhood has a VR vacation home. Over on the east side, there's one home over there, if you see it, that's in blue. And it is on the east side of the Regatta Park. And it is the one vacation rental home that is in existence now. And that is Marilyn's, and she's here, and we don't object to that one. So I'm going to read you my short note here. Our quiet residential neighborhood was recently proposed to be in the VR zone. This neighborhood is located west of the Regatta Park. Our road is a dead end with no turnaround and has minimal street parking. Here is a petition that was signed by 17 of the homeowners against this proposal. And I hope that you all have a copy. Do you?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. I submitted the original to the appropriate person at City Hall on Friday, May 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Miles Schlesinger.
My name is Miles Schlesinger. I lived across from the Regatta Park until January of this year on the corner across from the flagpole. And I have been using Devil's Lake since 1955. So I have lived here as a permanent residence since 2009, and I've owned the property since 1990. I think that VRDs could be managed just as it is now, with more teeth in the system, giving Timothy Novak or whoever's in the planning department some teeth behind what he says, and you don't have to be a green builder, which I was before. In my first career, I was a restaurateur in the hospitality industry. At one time we had 800 people, and that's equivalent to running VRDs. And you can run VRDs and have performance standards in the contract. And you should do away with this yes-no zone, which I think is ridiculous. The 30 days, 60 days, when the planning director was explaining it, although I couldn't hear a lot of his testimony. It's so confusing that no one knows what they can or cannot do. Give Timothy Novak or the planning department some rules and regulations. One strike, you pay a $500 fine. The second strike, you're banned, and then you have the problem of settling with your tenants who are booked, and you can't have the license for a year or 2 years. But it is a manageable problem, and this zoning across the street, there were so many things over the last 3 or 4 years that it is confusing even for someone who thinks he has still got his abilities to reason. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rob Ragers.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I'm not sure exactly how to start.
Start with your name.
My name's Rob Reigers. My wife and I, Karen, just purchased a home at 3343 Northeast West Devils Lake Road. I did prepare a piece of paper. I think you all have my little statement. I'm not sure if you want me to read it or just kind of explain kind of my thought process and what we're doing here in Lincoln City.
Excuse me if I can just one more time remind people, speak really directly into the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
That better?
I think so.
Okay. My wife and I, I'll just kind of, anyway, we have a desire to, we fell in love with Lincoln City, not just because of the ocean, but because of Lincoln City itself. We have a passion for ADA, and we're wanting to build our house on the corner of Holmes and Northeast Devils Lake Road as a home that would accompany disabled folks, total mobility, 100% ADA compliant, with a lot of extras. And we're just hoping that we can include that into a vacation rental to not only for a future home for ourselves as a retirement, but to, in the meantime, to accommodate people with disabilities.
Is the property in one of these blue zones?
It's unfortunately, no, it's not. That's what I said. I kind of didn't know exactly how to speak on this behalf, but knowing.
Richard, is that in the notice zone?
Sorry?
Is his property in the notice zone?
Sure exactly what property is we're talking about.
Could we determine that? We might not even be able to address it, depending on whether or not it's in the notice zone.
Okay.
I think he's talking about no sewer in this area?
No, it's sewer. It's on the
Any
bus
sewer?
line, yeah.
So his property is on West Devils Lake Road at Holmes Road, and it's not in one of the proposed areas for vacation rental zoning, but we did notify everyone on the east side who has any residentially zoned property,
It is in the notice.
so that they would know what was being proposed and be able to make comments.
Is that it?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
That's all we have on the list. Is there anyone else that wants to make a testimony? Yes, ma'am, please come up.
My name's Jerry Ann Haas, and I live in Bayview. One of the, few houses that have been built in there. I'm here tonight unprepared to make a statement, and I apologize for that. We received the letter only about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. My husband and I were planning to take a trip to Europe, and we have not had a chance to prepare. We got back yesterday. But I have a couple of questions, and I do want to just make the statement that I know that no one in Bayview has requested. We were stunned. I don't know when this was put forth. Bayview was put forth because we were not notified And we know we didn't ask for it, so can you tell us exactly when it was put, when was it added to this map?
This is it. This is the first.
Okay, all right, and we were given absolutely no, so we've never made a petition, and I'm wondering if it's too late to do that now, because we will go back and circulate a petition for our Bayview. And we weren't allowed, we didn't have a written statement, but if it's not too late, we would like to submit that. And I have a couple of questions. We have an HOA, and we have a clubhouse, and I wondered if the city is going to override our HOA rules about if we have rules that are set up to have certain areas for vacation rentals, or if we ourselves can limit the nights that they could be rented if we have an HOA and it's all in agreement. And can we also say that if it's a vacation rental that they're not allowed to use our clubhouse, because you get a house crammed with 8-10 people and they come in and want to use the pool, which holds about 7 people, it means that the people who are living there are not going to be able to use it. I have those 2 questions.
I can just say that as far as your HOA rules, the city does not override that. We can allow certain things, but if you prohibit it, then that overrides what the city does.
Great. Okay. So anything? Okay. Well, then I think you probably answered between Kate and you probably answered all my questions. Just to let you know, totally stunned. Never requested it. It doesn't seem like a good idea to me. But can you answer my question about then the petition and the written statements? Are we still?
Richard, could you answer that?
Is that going to be too late?
I would say 2 things about
Either
that.
Richard.
One is what the Planning Commission is going to do is make a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will hold its own hearing on this whole matter, starting at square one. So you certainly can submit a petition to the City Council for that hearing. The other thing is, if you want the record for this hearing held open, you can ask for that, and they won't make a decision tonight. They'll wait until you can ask for it to be kept open for a week, so you would have a week to submit additional material if that's what.
Then I'd like to request that it be held open so that we can submit our petition.
Certainly.
May I just ask you a clarifying question, which is, you talked about circulating a petition, and I don't want to make an assumption, but are you suggesting that a VR zone is not good in your neighborhood, or is good?
It's not good.
Not good.
We have one vacation rental, and it causes enough problems that was something that we are, as an HOA, are considering making sure that it limits it. So, we're just a little bit behind you, and we didn't think we had to worry about it because we weren't on the list. We thought we were going to slide right out of it and we wouldn't have to worry about it. So we do not think it's a good idea.
Doug?
Appreciate you coming. Were you a...
No. We are essentially undeveloped, and so our HOA is handled by I don't want to call him a developer, but the the manager of the property. So they're all the officers, but everything is put to a vote for those of us that live there.
I have a question. Is there one way in and one way out of Bayview?
Yes.
Is there a lot of it's dead ends? I don't know exactly where it is on the map, but it's just one and then that's it? And is it's all uphill, isn't it? Okay.
Both ways.
And it's not a lot of parking, correct?
No. Well, are you talking
in Bayview itself?
Yeah.
General.
Is this where people go to watch 4th of July and they park on the sides of the road and jam it up?
They watch what?
Is this where they watch the 4th of July fireworks and they jam up the whole thing?
We have a lot of people come up and enjoy this.
And then how is that afterwards, after that? How is the community there, the road and everything? Is it well taken care of after that, or is it pretty trashed?
Well, it does get trashed up. They set up their own fireworks while they're up there, but I would not. I don't. The city keeps it clean, and we go out and pick up fireworks, but that's one day a week. But it could be more, I guess, if you let vacation renters in there. I don't know.
Thank you.
But that one way in and one way out is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything? I'm sorry, and thank you for letting me.
Back in the back, ma'am. You had your hand up? Yes. Please come up.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Marilyn Kaufman. I have that big vacation rental right there next to the ramp. And I've been listening to the two ladies that spoke about that area west of me and how peaceful and how quiet. And I listen to screaming and laughter and fun constantly. If the sun is out, it's noisy. And so my suggestion was,
Sorry, Marilyn.
what circles the park? And last year, or maybe it was the year before, there were 3 in the circle of vacation rentals. 2 of them have dropped out, right? And mine opened in the fall of 2010. It's very successful. I live next to it. I maintain and manage it well. There is no problem with traffic. I have a huge driveway. Don't park in the street. And I hope I can keep it. I guess that's all I have to say.
Well, Marilyn, just to let you know, you are allowed to keep that until you sell the property. When you sell the property, then it goes back in. If we make a decision here, it go back into either a use for if we pass on this, or a not use if we don't pass on it. But as long as you retain ownership of the property, you're what's the word I want here? Grandfathered in?
Actually, that's not true. The ordinance 2014-22 provides that if a property owner would like to settle, they can take basically essentially a safe harbor position where they can rent up to 180 nights per year, and we will not take an enforcement action against them. At the time that they transfer the property, they are allowed to, as Richard pointed out earlier, come back through the process. This is the new owner, okay, is allowed to come back through the process and apply for the expedited review, the 30-night option, or the regular accessory use application process. So there is no yes or no. We're not doing yes or no. This is a vacation rental zone proposal that would have no limit, but even if this property was not placed in the vacation rental zone, it would have 180 nights until transfer, and then after that have the same incidental and subordinate accessory use option or the expedited 30-night option.
If they're in the zone.
If they're in the VR zone, then they don't have any limit and they can operate 365 nights a year.
Okay, but right now, everything that she has stays in place as long as she pays and renews every year until she trains ownership, and then it goes into a different classification.
Right now, she has the option to take the administrative allowance. Well, the administrative allowance is not effective until July 1. Right now, if she wants to settle, sign a compliance agreement and agree to 180 nights, we can do that right now. But if she wants to wait, I wouldn't be able to bring an enforcement action to stop her rental. So let's say that, I don't know where her land use approval says, but if it said she was entitled to 150 days and she's renting 200 days, I couldn't, and she wanted to take the 180 night settlement, I couldn't stop that. The council has tied my hands and said you'd have to accept 180 nights. If that 180 nights is not available, that settlement is not an option, then I could enforce whatever the land use approval provides, or whichever number you guys decide is accessory.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I have a question for you, too. Do you know about how many nights now you rent?
You know, I should have counted that today, but I would say in the neighborhood of 140.
Okay.
Marilyn, I had a question. Was it in your intent when you had the house built to use it for 365 days a year if possible?
Yes, it's on my permit, and it was signed before I ever started construction.
Okay. So your intent was for
To
usage?
use it as a vacation rental, and that's why I'm next door to manage and maintain it.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Marilyn?
I do. If a house is allowed 140 days, is there a time frame or a way that they can request 180 days?
I'll just go back to what I said, is that right now, if the ordinance 2014-22 becomes effective on July 1, right now it's been passed by council with a delayed effective date, was challenged at LUBA and upheld. So right now, that ordinance goes into effect. Existing VRD owner will have the ability to settle, take a safe harbor, and just by saying, I would like to take the safe harbor administrative allowance of 180 nights, and that's it. She's protected from an enforcement action.
I'm not sure if I'll help her or not, but what you just said would be available in all areas where there's a VRD now, and not just specifically to what we're looking at tonight, which is the VR zone, which is would be.
Yeah. The difference is number one, and this is kind of going to my legal advice to you, but number one, you do not have to rezone any property to VR. You have a proposal from staff. They've looked at the locational criteria and they've given you some recommendations. But this is a city-initiated request. You don't have to rezone a single property to VR. The council doesn't have to rezone a property to VR. Right now, you have residentially zoned properties. And forgetting VR for a moment, all residentially zoned properties are allowed vacation rental use only as incidental and subordinate accessory use. That's the law. It's been the law since 1989. So council has stated very publicly last year that we will enforce the accessory use limitation in order to reduce land use conflicts between residential property owners and VRD owners. And council adopted some alternatives and options to lessen the burden of that enforcement. One of those things that they did was to create a VR zone. So if you want to rent more, you could request a VR zone. And that's a mixed-use zone that doesn't have the accessory use limitation. Another option that was created by the council is they created this settlement, a safe harbor, if you will, where if you elect the safe harbor, the 180-night option, you can rent 180 nights until you transfer the property, and at which time the VRD approval goes away. It goes away now when you transfer the property, and the new owner can come in and apply for a residential accessory use VRD and go through the land use process. So what you're considering tonight is staff's recommendations for proposed vacation rental zones. Not required to do it. Property owners have the option to come in and request the zone themselves. Staff is basically putting these out before you, and it saves applicants, property owners, the $2,500 application fee because the city's basically paying for this hearing.
So if we did nothing here and we enforced the law, Maryland would be limited to 30 nights a year.
No.
No.
Unless she requested the 180.
No.
No, this is essentially an existing vacation rental.
Okay.
Has the following options. Under the ordinances that the council's adopted, she can request to take the settlement, the 180 nights, and then be protected, and I can't bring an enforcement action against her. And when her property is transferred, the VRD approval goes away anyway, and then that new owner has the right to come back through the process. Another option an existing vacation rental owner has under the ordinances that were passed last year is they can come in and request a vested rights determination. And they can come in and say, I'm entitled to rent more than 180 nights, and prove where it says that they're allowed to do that, and demonstrate that they, in good faith, are allowed to do that. Frankly, the council chose 180 nights because the terms of the code are incidental and subordinate, and even if you were unclear about what incidental meant, subordinate clearly means less than half. And so council said the most you could really in good faith have thought you were going to be entitled to is just less than half. So that's why they went with 180 nights. Not because they thought it was incidental and subordinate, just because they were trying to give a generous settlement offer to existing vacation rentals. But if you don't want to take the settlement, you can apply for a vested rights determination and argue you're entitled to more. And there is one final alternative. If you're a property owner with an existing VRD and you don't want to take the settlement and you don't want to do a vested rights determination, you can apply for the VR zone or any commercial or mixed-use zone where there is no limit.
I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. Do you mind telling us what the address is of your rental?
1220 Northeast Lake Drive, right next to the boat ramp. Overlooks it.
Northeast what, Lake Drive? Thank you.
Gary, did you have your hand up?
Pointing out that
Oh, okay, thank you.
little blue square.
Oh, thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to testify? Ma'am?
My name is Diane Dunkman, also a resident of Bayview, and I wanted to follow up on Joanne Haas's information. Unfortunately, I just received my mailed notification 5 days ago. So, not prepared. Another neighbor also received their notification late last week and were unable to attend because of the short notice. My biggest concern is a conflict of information, and please let me know if the original information was incorrect or if it's changed in some way. Back in 2013, at a meeting that I observed on the government access station on May 21st, 2 hours and 11 minutes and some odd seconds into that meeting, yes, I have it on my iPad, it was discussed about a PUD, that the CCNRs would relegate what happened in that neighborhood. And so the zoning question did not affect that neighborhood. I also heard at a different one that I don't have referenced, a real estate agent questioning specifically Bayview because we were a planned community. We do have CCNRs that discuss vacation rental. She was told specifically, no, the zoning would not affect that community because it is under the CCNRs. Why are we now under it? Why are we now being considered? So, if you don't have your answer, I understand. Again, short notice. So, we're concerned in the neighborhood. There are a lot of people that have lots that are trying to sell those lots because of the zoning questions. There are a lot of people considering the lots that are not coming to the neighborhood because of the zoning questions. And I'm not saying in a positive way or a negative way. It's just so unsettled that they're not willing to take a chance, whichever way they would prefer it to go. It's just unsettled, and it's been going on for several years now, so they're not willing to put the money down and build a home. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to point out, as Richard mentioned earlier, private covenants and restrictions are just that, private land use constraints. So they are not enforced by the city, they are enforced by the association and the members of the association, the lot owners. They can be more restrictive than the zoning can be. They cannot permit things that the zoning would prohibit, but they can be more restrictive.
Thank you, Richard. Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dean Coppage. My wife and I live at 1130 Northeast Voyage Avenue. We are south of Regatta Park. If you drive all the way to the end going west or southwest on Northeast Lake, there's a small gravel lane that turns off to the right. We're on that unimproved gravel lane. We've been there for a little over 14 years now. There is one house on either side of us that are owner-occupied. The one on our right-hand side or north side, the original purchaser of the house 16 years ago is still there. The one on the south, a retired gentleman, bought it about 9 years ago, and he lives there full time. We get an awful lot of traffic that turns and comes down Northeast Lake, even though there's one, dead-end street, no outlet signs posted there. And I think the majority of them are just curious. They just come down to see what's going on or what's down there. They may be, house hunting or something. When they get to the end, they take a right and come up that little gravel lane, and then they are stuck. There's only way to turn around is to back up into a wet area or graveled area that the UPS trucks do use and the garbage truck use. That the city came out and did some improvements there. On Northeast Lake itself, there's one small cottage that is for rent. It's about 400 square feet. It's a one-room and a bath. They keep it rented pretty much full-time. It is for rent now. There is one home on the street that is owned by two families. One of the members of one of the families passed away, so they are putting it on the market. They have just done an extensive remodel on it. That's the only house on the street that is for sale at this point in time. The rest of the homes are owner-occupied. Some of them are only occupied for half a year, and they sit vacant for the rest of the year. There are 3 homes that are owned by families that have extended family members that come in on a fairly regular basis, especially during the spring and summer when the weather is so nice over here. Both of those, though, have long, long driveways on their property, and so all of their parking can be handled on their pieces of property, so they don't pose any problem. But Northeast Lake Street is a asphalt street. There's no curb and gutters. It is very, very narrow, and so there is no on-street parking. And that would be the biggest problem if it were to suddenly be opened up for vacation rentals. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I just have a question. You mentioned that little cottage
Yes.
just up the street from you, I believe you said, and that it's a rental. Is it a month-to-month type of rental, or is it a vacation?
No, it's strictly a month-to-month rental. The only vacation rental, there was one large 3-story home on the west side, or I call it the south side of Regatta Park, that has been a vacation rental for the past 3 years. It recently sold, and the new owners have taken it off, so they're not going to be renting it. That one little cottage normally stays rented for about a year at a time. We don't see a lot of movement in and out. Our home actually faces the east boundary of the Indian Shores development. And, of course, there are no vacation rentals in that. They're CC and HARS. Do not allow that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Todd?
Good evening. I'm Todd Young. I live at 5416 Northeast Zephyr Court, which is right in the middle of the golf course. I just want to reiterate that our street is not safe enough to have a bunch of rental property, i.e., when we expanded from 17 lots to 85 lots in my tenure at the golf course, okay, the fire marshal deemed that there was no parking in the street. Now, there sure enough are a few vacation rentals in our community, on our street, and guess what? Nobody polices all those cars in the street, and honest to goodness, there is no way that a fire truck or an ambulance could get to my house on our dead-end street, okay, if there is vacation rental property there. Besides, I don't want them there.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Jerry Newton. About a year ago, I bought a place in Regatta Park, so I'm kind of new to the neighborhood. I did have a couple questions. The public notice document stated that the VRDs would use without restriction of the existing accessory limitation. Is that correct? In other words,
Correct.
365 days?
Correct.
But everybody else is under a 180-day restriction, or a 30 or a 60?
That's only if you end up in a VR zone. If we decided your house would be in a VR zone, you could rent it 365.
Okay.
But if it ends up not being in a VR zone, then it would be down to...
The standard is accessory use, incidental and subordinate to the principal use as your own vacation home. That is the standard. So if someone is alleged to be violating the accessory use standard, we can haul them in here before the Planning Commission and present evidence that they've rented 200 days a year. And the Planning Commission would then apply the standard. Is 200 days a year a violation of the incidental and subordinate accessory use standard? And like many land use standards, you may find that it's been violated because it's a discretionary standard. You could find that 150 nights is a violation, or that 100 nights is a violation.
But the VRD says it's without the restrictions.
The VR zone, which is the zone that's been created.
Right.
That is not a residential zone. That is a mixed-use zone.
My other question is, what is the financial benefit to the city for making all these areas available for VRD?
I would suggest that, well, the financial benefit would be, of course, the possibility of getting, transit use taxes, but a big part of it would be to avoid being sued by landowners who think they can sell their house for more money as a VRD than they can sell their house as a residential house. And if we've taken that ability to make an income from them, or taken the ability to sell the house as a VRD from them, then we've taken something from them that they might feel an economic loss at, and we could be sued.
Okay. The people that I know around me where I live are all long-term, full-time residents. No one in that neighborhood that I know plans on renting their house out for entertainment or rentals. So I personally signed the petition that was mentioned earlier. I just had a couple of those questions about that. So thank you very much. Any questions?
No, sir. Just to be clear, the city's not proposing any rezonings in order to avoid being sued. I think this is just was a proposal by the planning department to review the east side, and again, if you can decide not to rezone any properties to VR.
Would anybody else like to speak? Is there any testimony or comment from representatives of public agencies?
I did mention it last time, but last time we did this, but I'll mention it for the record in this hearing, that the vacation rental ordinance 2000, the VR zone was created, just the zone, just the color on the map, was created by ordinance 2014-21. That ordinance, all it didn't apply it anywhere, just created the zone. That ordinance was challenged by the Oregonians in Action at LUBA. It was upheld on April 22nd by the Land Use Board of Appeals as a new zone.
Of this year or last year?
Last year.
This year. A few weeks ago, the Land Use Board of Appeals upheld the VR zone. They also upheld Ordinance 2014-22, which includes the 180-night option and then the 30-night option that Richard talked about.
ORS Section 197.763, paragraph 6A states that upon request, the Commission must either grant a continuance for no less than 7 days or hold the record open for no less than 7 days to permit any participant an opportunity to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence. We've already had a request to hold the record open. I would like to ask for a motion to continue to a date certain.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, I believe under the procedures, there's two options: a continuance of the hearing or leaving the record open. So staff will always recommend that you close the hearing and set a date certain 7 days from now, or at least 7 days from now, for the record to close, and ask any individuals that wish to submit additional argument or evidence or testimony to submit it in writing to the planning department. So
7 days?
Minimum 7 days. You can set 10 days or...
30 days?
Well, you do have limitations that you make only a recommendation to the city council. So if you fail to act within, I think it's 60 days, that goes on to council without your recommendation. So you always have to keep that in mind. But in this case, you would need a motion to close the hearing and leave the record open to at least pick a date, at least 7 days from now, and then continue deliberations where you would take this up and talk amongst yourselves and make a recommendation to a date certain.
I recommend to close the hearing and keep the record open until Wednesday, the 13th at noon.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me? You want to discuss the motion? Please. You're looking to discuss the date?
I'd like to suggest that we extend the date out for people to submit testimony, because if the one lady is going to be contacting all the owners in the property on Bayview, I think it's going to take her more than 7 days to gather her information. So I would suggest we extend it for 30 days.
What does 30 days do to our schedule, Mr. Appicello?
I don't know what it does to your schedule, but I'm pretty sure that this was, again, you make a recommendation to the city council. I believe this was noticed for this planning commission meeting and for a specific date for the city council.
Yeah, it's scheduled to go to city council on June 8th.
So you may want to try to keep the council's schedule by keeping your deliberations or recommendations within that time frame.
And our next meeting is the 19th, is that right?
That's right.
Well, I'd like to be able to take up deliberation on this at the next meeting. Pick a date.
Well, a motion's been made in a second, so if you want to withdraw it, do so.
I want to withdraw it.
And then let's vote.
Want to amend it?
I seconded it, so we had discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I guess I would ask that you also announce that deliberations will occur on the 19th, and I would ask you also not to engage in ex parte communications. Anyone wants to talk to you about this, say, just please reduce your comments to writing and enter them into the record, get them to Kate at the Planning Department by close of business on the 13th.
In case any of you didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, noon on the 13th.
Our next meeting is the 19th. We will be holding deliberations on this action on the 19th.
So, was it noon on the 13th for having written testimony in? Was that correct?
Yes. Noon on the 13th for getting the testimony in, deliberations at 6 p.m. on the 19th. And on the 19th, there will not be opportunity for public comment on the issue because the hearing's been closed.
Have we closed the hearing yet?
Yes.
Officially?
Yes.
I had a question.
I should also specify that whatever comes in by noon on the 13th,
We'll get it.
you will consider, and you'll get that.
Does the city attorney or staff have any comments concerning legal issues raised during these proceedings, instructions on the applicable law?
I'll do that right before you deliberate. So we'll wait until
Okay.
we see what written testimony comes in. We'll review it, and then we'll give you advice relative to it.
Is there any old business?
None?
New business. We're going to have a discussion on the use of Google Earth at these hearings.
Is that for Google Earth for the commissioners or for people to present?
Actually, I put this on the agenda, asked Richard to put this on the agenda. It's my feeling that Google Earth is ubiquitous in our society, that we could find some legal way for Richard to introduce Google Earth into evidence during the staff presentation, and that we could use it to get a better acquaintance with the ground that we're deliberating. A lot of the stuff that I've gone through.
Speak into your phone because the audience can't hear.
Well,
Or the TV audience can't hear either.
Thank you, yeah. I feel like I've been handicapped through all of this VRD stuff by having a lack of awareness of the ground that we're talking about. Knowing what the topology is, what the views are, what the neighborhoods look like.
Are we allowed to go to the sites in person that we're talking about?
Well, I'll let Richard answer that.
Site visits are not ex parte communications, but they are handled in exactly the same way. So they are still information that you receive outside the hearing. So technically you follow the same process for a site visit as you would for an ex parte someone chats with you at the coffee shop. So the example, I think the training memo we used a couple years ago said was, you go out to a site and you see what you think is an endangered bald eagle or something on the property, and you're convinced it's some endangered species, and you're now thinking you have this fact in your head that you think somehow may affect your decision on the application. Say there's a applicable standard about protecting endangered species, and now you have that information. You need to disclose the facts that you obtained outside of the hearing. And so someone can, and you also invite others to rebut the information that you obtained outside the hearing. So you say, I was at the site on May 3rd, and I saw endangered, I think I used endangered rubber boa, I think I used in the memo as a snake, and I've never seen one, but I saw that on the site, and I think we're going to have to protect it. Or maybe you haven't even you disclose that fact, and then someone gets up and says, I'd like to rebut that. I was on the site as well. That was a garden hose. You need to get your glasses changed and update your prescription. So that's the kind of thing where you...
I never tire of that story.
Well, I guess if it was seen at Imagine That, the store over there, then, yeah, that could be a rubber bullet.
It could be, yes.
But,
I know I recycle my stories all the time, and so I apologize if you've heard that 6 times already.
I would like to hear you apply that to Google Earth, though. I mean, I understand that there's a chance of an ex parte ingestion of knowledge.
I believe that I've recommended that you not, during a hearing, with your laptop, pull up Google Earth while you're sitting here, because no one else is seeing it. I recommend strongly that you ask the planning department to present it as part of their staff report, to have as a regular part of the presentation. We have all this technology that you simply present the aerial view, and you could even go to street view on some of these places and actually look at the condition of the property. It usually tells you it's a month old or 2 months old or a year old. You can actually go and you can enter that into the record. Now it's in the record, and it's presented by staff, and it's for everyone to see.
That works for me.
So, is it possible in our packets, when we receive a packet, that it's stated in the packet that Google Earth was used? So that way it's already on the record before it even comes to us, I mean, to the public.
It's difficult to enter Google Earth into the record. I'm not sure if we have the ability. I know that we can show it on the screen, and I know it's videotaped and there's a record of it created. I don't know how, and this is a technology question, and I'm not the technology guy, but there ought to be a way to print the Google Earth images or somehow download them. I don't know what kind of license we'd have to pay or whatever.
Well, one concern, I'm sorry, one concern is that what's on Google Earth changes. The aerial photography that's on there now, right now for Lincoln City, is the photographs that the city had taken in 2007. There also is aerial photography that we use on our GIS, our Geographic Information System, that was taken in 2013. At some point in the very near future, that will be on Google Earth. So, in a way, we have that, but we can say we're using such and such a thing. The street view changes constantly, and to say we're entering that into the record, well, you can't by saying we're entering street view into the record. We don't know what it is because it changes. So it's easier, like if I put street view on the show it up on the screen, then there's a record of it, because what's being recorded is what's actually being shown from the screen, from the computer. So in that sense, it's easy to do, that way also, instead of we've got the entire Google Earth for the entire universe.
So we could direct you during your presentation to put that on, and it becomes part of the record and everybody has access to it.
Exactly.
Go access.
Yeah, generally, you need to present to the decision maker, physically present the evidence you're asking them to consider. It must be before the decision maker. You don't oftentimes simply reference something or incorporate it, especially something that changes. So the better course of action is to actually present it. If Richard shows it, it's videotaped, it's part of the record of these proceedings, and if there's ever any question about what exactly was presented, you've got it on video, and if we have to, for purposes of a LUBA appeal, create a video of the images that were shown on the screen, we can do that. I know that our IT people are quite capable of doing it. Bill Wyman put together something for the LUBA appeal on the VRD ordinances. At the last second, he was able to get something for me, so I know they can do it.
Well, also the date that of the images we're looking at is right at the bottom of the Google Earth screen, so we'll know if they're way out.
And I didn't want to be endorsing Google Earth or any particular product. I think that any information you receive that documents the site conditions is best done all together So you all get the same thing. And if that means you all go at the same time out and view the site, that's better than you go trespassing on someone's property and then you get arrested, and that's a misdemeanor offense, and then, I don't know how many of you look good in black and white horizontal stripes, but maybe don't go to some property without permission, and when you want a site visit, it's always best to have staff put that information in the record, and if staff can't do it, it's too difficult, there are no Google images or other aerial photographs, then maybe that's when you have a group site visit. I've done that in the past. It's awkward and not very helpful, although some people say, oh, well, I'm oriented, at least know where it is. That's really not usually a criterion. Anyway.
That would satisfy my need if Richard would present using Google Earth in cases where I don't have a clue what the topology in particular doesn't change from one image to the next. And there have been a lot of these cases where I wanted to know what the topology was with respect to the views of the ocean or the lake or what have you. Are you adept at Google Earth, Richard?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
I was just curious about any thought given to our workshop, so we know kind of what's coming up for the year.
What was the question? I didn't hear you.
I asked when, if there's been any thought given to when we would have our workshop, now that we're all here.
You're talking about the goal-setting workshop.
Yes, whatever.
I think we have, as you suggested, we have a meeting on the 19th, and that might be an appropriate time to do it, because your deliberations right now is the only thing that's on the agenda for that night. That's, I'm seeing general nods.
Is everybody in agreement with that? That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, we're on to reports and comments. Community Development Director.
I have nothing to report right now.
City Attorney.
Maybe if Kate remembers the dates for our GAP NELSCOP project is getting underway, and the consultants will be here for a kickoff with the staff next week. And then our Project Advisory Committee will be when, Kate?
I think it's a Wednesday. It's June 3rd at 4:30 in this room. And anyone can come to it. I don't know if we're filming it.
Pardon me?
I don't know if we're filming it, though. That's to be determined, I guess.
Anyway, are we invited as well?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, so is there any problem? Eventually we'll be voting, as, you know, voting on the plan.
Are we putting it all in the record?
Production.
I don't think so. We'll let you know if we think of a reason why you shouldn't come.
Is it okay if they all come?
Well, if you all come, then we need to advertise it.
So what do we want to do about that? How many people would really like to come to that that first meeting?
It'd be interesting, but if there's any chance of a conflict of interest, I'll stay out of it.
Or if it means that we wouldn't be able to vote.
We'll need to look at make sure there's nothing in the rules that would prohibit it. But
Okay, we'll let you know.
All right, do we have any reports and comments from the Planning Commission?
Bruce. Microphone, Bruce.
Do we have any reports and comments from the Planning Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Deborah, just out of curiosity. Have we had any feedback from the redevelopment down in Nelscott when they reconfigured the access for parking slips? Has anybody come to the city and...
The new parking lot just south of the Nelscott business strip?
Yeah, south of 32nd Street.
I haven't heard anything about it personally. Anyone else on the staff?
No, there was a lot of discussion in the original planning for the whole project about what might or might not happen to that parking, and it was the consensus certainly of the merchants there that they wanted as much of that parking preserved. And I know that not only are they preserving a substantial amount of it, but they're also, we added the new urban renewal parking lot there to actually increase the parking.
That's the one just to the south of the Christmas store?
Cottage.
Yeah, well, just as an observation, I thought it looked pretty good. I mean, you still had access to travel through, whereas before sometimes there was a little problem with that. And it looked like there could have been, in even just the area, not counting the one you talked about, Richard, but it looked like there could have been more parking space available because of the, what do you call that type of parking, parallel parking, yeah.
You're talking about the parallel? There may well be more parking. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the details in a long time.
Before the improvement, it was just gravel and there weren't any lines drawn. So when that's true, people don't line up necessarily as well. And so once you've paved it and put this lined the parking spaces, you tend to get more parking. I think once the construction is finished on the highway, they're going to have some adjustment to the new parking lot, but it'll be about the same number of spaces.
There'll be some adjustment to what they just finished?
Yeah, I believe so, because their flow is going to be changed a little bit after they finish the construction of the highway.
On 32nd Street.
Hmm?
You mean on 32nd Street, is the traffic flow is going to be a little different?
Well,
anything else into that?
No, there's a minor adjustment. Maybe I shouldn't have even brought it up, but when they came in for their site plan review, they said that there's a ADA space right at the north end of the new parking lot, and there was going to be something changes there. I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but we could bring it next week or next meeting if you want to see the detail.
No, I think it's looking pretty good, but now that you brought that up, is there wheelchair access into those places? Because they're reconfiguring that whole darn area. I mean, it's...
Yes. There is ADA access, and there will be after everything's complete.
And the area down there on 32nd, is that going to... Are they closing that road off now due to reconfiguring that intersection? Is that why it's...
Yes, what they're doing is on the west side of the highway, they're actually going to be doing some fill to raise the level of 32nd Street. That's why it's closed now for that. And on the east side, they'll be constructing a new road so that both sides of 32nd line up with each other.
Man, what's going to happen? I'm sorry. Bill, here a little bit. I'm curious. I'll drop it then. I'll ask it on the side. No, I was just curious. We have that public parking area there on 32nd Street. And if we're raising up that grade, do we have to do anything with inside the city?
I don't think so. I think that's going to just be, I think the entrance is going to stay where it is. So I don't think there's a problem there. I'm not sure about it, but that will still be available for parking.
Okay. It's all right.
We have come to public comments on non-agenda items not involving a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a comment?
Of course, back to Planning Commission comments.
We're past that.
Can we get some oil?
Or could we get seats that don't move, that cannot be moved that way? Because it's really irritating.
Our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, May 19th, 2015 at 6 p.m., and we are adjourned.